Welcome to the line, Aimée. I'm here with the CEO of Brubaker Incorporated in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And we're here to talk about your story and just have an honest conversation about the trades and what we do. And we want to know more about you and what you do. So welcome to the line.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Yeah. So you and I met, I want to say a couple of years ago, maybe I don't know exactly when, but you're
about a year.
You're one of those people that you meet, and I wish I would have known you longer. You know,
Or you think I'm really crazy. You
Well-
don't know which.
well-
I either really like her or she's absolutely crazy.
well, I'm pretty sure that you are crazy, but anybody who is managing or running a company has to be a little bit crazy because
Fair.
yeah, you got to be able to look past what makes sense and decide what you have to do. So, I mean, that's just the truth of it. So,
Very true.
well, let's talk a little bit here. You're a unique story. Like I would call you a bit of an enigma in this construction world, in this space. Brubaker is not a small company. I mean, they might be by government definitions,
Yep.
but 93 employees, service-based company in construction, and you've been in construction for like what, 35 years, something like that.
All my life.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
used to construct little matchbox car roads in the backyard because I was very much tomboy. So yeah, I was constructing things since I was little.
Absolutely.
I was just destined to be here.
So let's honestly talk a little bit about your story and how you've become the CEO of this company. And you've done some pretty big things for this company in the past year and a half that have been just pretty impressive. And the county and our local area is definitely paying attention as well. They should. So let's talk about how you got here. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, growing up, I lived in a household that had, turmoil. We were a bit of a dysfunctional family. My parents, they struggled. Alcohol. As I was in my teenage years, drugs came into our household. So, I kind of pieced out at 16. I was done. Was ready to go figure some things out, and ended up pregnant at 17. Quit high school, had a baby at 18.
Wow.
Had another baby at 22, and lived on welfare till the mid 90s.
Wow.
And really never had a job. I had odd jobs, but never really had a job. And, now I'm looking at these two little kids that, I need to feed them.
Yeah.
I need to take care of them. And I started feeling these feelings of I need to make their life different. Like their life can't be like mine.
Come on.
And, my grandmother committed suicide, so we had a long history of mental health issues in our family. And, I wanted things to be different. I didn't necessarily know how, but I just knew I wanted things to be different. And I got a job serving sodas at a nightclub called Low Places. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people listening that were big fans.
I was just in Nashville, and there's a Low Places honky tonk down there. So, I mean,
It was a big deal around here.
yeah.
So when I started, they didn't have a liquor license. So it was the manager who was a friend of my parents, and it was me, and I was serving sodas in the evening. So, it worked out. My husband worked during the day, and I went to work at 6 in the evening. So we started working through the process of getting a liquor license, and then the manager quit. And it was just me. So
Wow.
then they made me the manager. Which was the worst decision they've ever made. It was an absolutely horrible decision. I mean, to me, a manager was somebody that yelled at people and told people what to do and made sure other people heard you telling people what to do, because that's how you let everybody know you're a manager,
Interesting.
So we started hiring staff, putting everything in place. I had a boss that was amazing, like really helped and supported me. But I remember maybe 6 months into the job, he calls me into his office and he has all these letters, because this was the 90s.
Yeah.
So, he wasn't pulling up emails. So all my employees, I started recognizing the handwriting. They literally wrote him letters about all the reasons why he should fire me, and they hated working for me.
Wow. Because
I was horrible. I was mean. I was rude. I didn't listen to anyone. And he told me that depending on what my attitude was during that meeting, I was either going to be fired or he was going to start to mentor me. So I just started bawling, of course, and I'm just like, I just want you to help me. Like, I need this job, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love it here. And then I'm going to all my employees now. Like, I don't want, you know, I don't want you to hate me. Like, what, you know? And now I'm like groveling because
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, there's something I'm not doing right here.
Yeah.
So Mark really mentored me, and you know, he is somebody that I still admire today. We're still connected through LinkedIn. We talk every now and again. So Mark left. You know, other managers came in. I was there 8 years. Wanted to start a food and beverage part of the hotel. Did all the cooking for about 2 years.
Wow.
For all of our banquets.
Wow.
I was the F&B manager, and then I was the assistant GM, and then a family bought it and said basically the whole leadership, you know, you guys are going to be let go. So I'm like, crap, now I have to find a job. I didn't know how to use a computer, barely. I could use our point of sale system, but as far as like a computer with Word and everything, I'm like, I don't know how to put a resume together. So my HR director helped me, applied for a job at Deraco, and got that job. I was the customer service manager. And then Mike Donor was my boss, who Mike Donor owns Traffic Control Services, Flagger Force. So, I mean, he's in multiple states, you know.
Flagger Force is a big deal.
Oh, big deal. And Mike is a genius. He started Flagger Force, you know, when we were running a Deraco together.
Okay.
I was ultimately became the GM of all 4 offices. And then Mike had to be terminated for breach of contract for being, you know, starting Flagger Force. They said, this is a competing business.
Right.
And as the franchisor, we can tell you, you can't work here anymore. So John Way had to appoint someone else, which was me.
Well, and if you're listening and you don't know what Flagger Force is, then I don't know if you've been driving on the roads or anything like that, but it's really
a love-hate relationship with Flagger Force.
And it's a very intuitive name. They're the people with the signs that tell you to stop or go during construction. So,
yeah. So, you know, we went immediately into a 2-year litigation. I couldn't speak with Mike. I mean, they were suing him as well.
And you had a good relationship with him.
Oh,
but you weren't allowed to speak with him.
Correct.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I not only took over a Deraco, I took over Way Delivery. And we also had a car repair service, Way Service Center. So it was like I had no experience with that.
So managing one thing wasn't enough for you. You needed to have multiple irons in the fire.
Well, I didn't ask for it.
Okay.
They just defaulted me again. You know, that was my history. By default, Aimée, we're just giving all this to you, and then you figure it out. So not only did I have to jump in and figure that out, I was the star witness through this 2-year litigation out in San Diego.
Wow.
So that John didn't lose the franchise. So ultimately, we go through all of that. John wins. We win the case, and he won almost $1 million in damages from a Deraco corporate.
Talk about that for a second. I really feel like I wish like project managers or people like in being a leader and a manager. I've sat in the witness chair in a courtroom, and you don't have to do anything wrong to end up in a courtroom. Just to be clear, you don't have to.
But you feel like you did.
You feel like you did.
You feel like you did.
You feel like you did. But it's like it was one of the scariest things that I've ever been through when that happened to me. But it was the greatest experience for me in being a manager and a leader, especially in what we do, because it makes me think about what we do. And now I think about, well, someday I might sit in front of someone and have to answer for this. Mm-hmm. Better make sure that your paperwork is up to date. And if you're listening to this and you're a foreman or you're a project manager, this is why daily logs, they matter. They matter because those are the tools that we use when we're 3 or 4 years down the road trying to remember what happened on a project that is done and over with, that we're being...
Yeah. The stuff they asked us to gather, I mean, it was like, I mean, I made a career out of gathering. I mean, we had 50, 60 boxes of printed emails and chains of communication. And it was funny, though, because at Deraco Corporate, I mean, they're a worldwide staffing organization. So they had these New York City big corporate attorneys. They had 3 of them. And then we had, 2 guys from Lancaster County, Brian Filer and Eric Winkle, who were absolutely incredible. But I am who I am. I don't, I'm more in the boardroom. I'm more like mommy dearest. I'm not, I'm not usually, I don't get very intimidated. I was a little intimidated. I was still young in my career,
Yeah.
but I'm also from my upbringing, I've been in crack houses. I've
Yeah.
been, I'm very intuitive,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take, it takes a lot to shake me. So they're just putting me through the ringer, asking me these questions. And while they're asking me these questions, I'm formulating in my mind how I'm going to turn it around on them and make them look like idiots.
Right.
I didn't succeed every time, but I succeeded quite a few times and left them a little bit speechless. And every single time, we'd walk away and we'd go in the back room. It's like, my attorneys are high-fiving me like, oh my God, and I'm just like, I just want to stick it to these guys. Like, they're just, yeah.
Well, I think that's
Just by the look of them, I didn't like them.
Well, I think that you despise injustice.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's like, how dare you? This man built this business from 1970 until now, and you just want to take it from him.
Yeah.
So winning that was really amazing. And then we immediately went into 2008, which everybody knows what happens in 2008. So
it sucked.
Yeah. So for 2 years, I'm trying to work on the business, but I'm also involved in this litigation that took so much time and effort. And now I'm like, okay, now we're really going to focus on this. I'm going to learn more about the delivery business, and we're going to move forward. And then it's like, you just get smacked upside the head with recession. And, it was the first time that as a leader, I knew I either had to lay people off or give big pay cuts, because the first people everybody was letting go were their staff, were their temporary employees.
Yeah.
And then, for delivery, they were finding ways to do it themselves. Anything they didn't have to outsource,
Right.
people were cutting back. And we were serving industries that were really impacted by the recession. So it was the first time that I was like, I had to look at my team and say, look, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to lay people off. I had 20 young women working for me at Deraco. They all had young children and they needed that job. I had seniors working in delivery who didn't have enough for retirement. So the income they were making there was critical to them paying their bills. Wow. And so I just pulled them together and I'm like, we have to figure this out together. Like, I can't do this by myself. And they did. Like, we really strategized different ways. Like, okay, maybe we didn't need the vehicle, but we could rent out our drivers. So we started working for Albright Life, where our delivery drivers started picking up, they're disabled and they're mentally. Basically, it was a facility where it was like an adult daycare. In essence. So people who couldn't be in their homes all day by themselves. So they would get picked up by a van and then dropped off at Albright. So our guys would drive the vehicles to go pick everybody up and take them there. Then we started doing pickups at Amish farms and delivering the deposits to the bank. And,
wow.
In staffing, we looked at, okay, what are the businesses now that we could offer maybe discounted rates that typically wouldn't use staffing, but they're having trouble finding people on their own.
Right.
So, we had to scale back quite a bit. We had to reduce our rates in some places to make it affordable still for a business. But we all took a 3% pay cut, but we didn't end up laying anybody off. We
in
shut
2008,
the service.
that's pretty impressive, Aimée.
Yeah, from 2008 to 2010,
wow.
we kept everybody.
Wow.
And John, I'll give it to John. He invested some money back in the business to make that more possible. But it was a group effort. So that was a real learning experience for me to understand that, as a leader, I don't have to have all the answers. I can be vulnerable with my team and tell them, like, I'm scared too. Like, and I don't know what to do. I've never been through this before. So this can't be a look to the leader to solve this. We all have to solve it together.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned as a leader is that I don't solve things by myself. When I bring collaboration in, and honestly, I really enjoy it. When I collaborate with people, it's like, we like to say that we're a solutions-based organization. And I don't want to say that I love problems, but it's like I enjoy the challenge of here's a problem and let's figure out how to make it work. We work in design, we work in construction, and the cool part about the trades is there's always an issue. It's not all clear cut. Sometimes you don't find out until you're there on site. And like you guys have to deal with that even more than we do. We, our sister company Legacy does a lot of contract work. You guys do a lot of service work. And so you have technicians who they have to go out there and they have to figure out the problem, and they're also in a client's home sometimes. They're, it's like, it's really challenging. But I find that when we collaborate and when we work together, it like unlocks something that's pretty powerful to find solutions. And then the camaraderie that comes when we do that together, it's like, I love team. I love when we solve something together. It's like a bond is created that is different than what was there before.
Yeah, it's really true. And people have said that to me, like, Aimée, I feel like you take jobs or you take on things that like would be so scary to someone else because it's like, it's just a big problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't really see problems. I see opportunity.
Yeah,
and that's what I try and teach our team, that every problem is an opportunity to learn more, to fail forward, to help somebody else, to do something you never thought you could do. And I looked at Brubaker, which, as a company that's been around, since 1945.
That's insane.
Yeah, who both brothers so educated in this space, in their own way, but really never had any mentoring to be a leader. They were tradesmen. Like they were really good in the trades and they understood the trades and they knew what to do, but leading and mentoring the team wasn't really the strong suit. So when you have a company go so long where they have people that have been here and they're so good at what they do, but they haven't been nurtured or mentored, it's like, that looks like a big problem to somebody. Like to come in there and say, I'm just going to take this over, especially as a woman, who hasn't worked in the trades. And to me, it was a huge opportunity. It was an opportunity, to bring my experience to the table, but then also learn so much from all of these really smart people that have been doing this for so long. And it was an opportunity for all of us. So when I came in, that's what they want. Everybody wanted to come in my office and tell me about all the problems. And I think that they wanted to kill me every single time I said, but this is an opportunity. Like this isn't, this isn't a problem. This is an opportunity. And, I just saw Alden Mills speak at the High Center event. And he said, one of the things that I absolutely loved is, what are you focusing on? And now since we were there, I say that to the team now, what are you focusing on? They complain about something. What are we focusing on?
I like that.
I haven't been punched in the face yet. I feel like I'm gonna be punched in the face one of these days by someone.
I want to come back to that, but I want to break it up here and throw you a little bit of a loop and ask you a question. And so this is totally out of left field. But what is something that Aimée cannot live without? Whether it's a tool, a piece of gear, or clothing. What is something? And like, get your head out of what we're talking about. And it can be.
Oh, it's a very easy answer.
Okay. What is something that you cannot live without?
My grandsons.
Oh.
1,000%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I quite literally crave those children at all times. It's like, as a grandmother now, I feel like these are my children that someone else takes away from me and raises. And it just makes me angry at my kids. Like, just bring them. Although my kids would say, Mom, take them whenever you want. Keep them overnight, keep them for a week, keep them for a month. Take them, just take them. It's not possible, but they are my obsession, my hobby, the love of my life. They're the absolute best thing in the world.
So I'm actually going to drill down on that a little bit. Why do you think that is? Other than, obviously you're kind of shattering barriers here or paradigms, I guess I would say, or both, because don't be offended by this, but you don't look like a grandma. I'm just saying, not what I picture.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
But why is it that our grandchildren or our children, or why do you think that matters so much to us? What is it inside us that makes that so important to you?
It's legacy.
Yeah.
I really do think it's legacy. I look at these 5 little boys and it's like, I see my kids breaking even more cycles than I did.
Come on. There it is.
So it's like when I was raising my kids, it was so incredibly important. And sometimes I took it to probably a greater extent than I should have. I became addicted to my job because finally, I was told I was going to be a failure. You're on welfare, you had a baby, you quit high school. Like you're not going to, you can't do anything with your life when you've done that. And I think to be able to show my kids that, people aren't allowed to put glass ceilings in place for me.
Yeah.
We put them in for ourselves all the time.
No, we do.
I don't necessarily believe that if they're put there by other people, we're also allowing it because we can leave a job. We don't have to work for a company. And I think sometimes that's a little bit of a crutch. I haven't made enough money because I'm a woman or, put whatever in place. But I think I'm living proof that, the only glass ceilings that could stay in place for me were the ones that I allowed to be there.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to show my kids that, if you work hard, nothing is given to you. You've got to work for it. But it doesn't matter where you come from or where you were. We create our own story.
Yeah.
And my story is not, this girl, whose parents battled addiction and quit high school and all of those things. My story is I'm a woman who's worked my ass off my whole life to get where I am today. Yeah. And unapologetically, I am who I am. Yeah. But I will help anyone. I will do anything for anyone. And I genuinely care about people. Yeah. And I think if you care about people, number one, they want to follow you. Yeah. They listen, even if you're giving them bad news. Yeah. Or giving them feedback about something that maybe they're not going to be overly excited to hear, as long as they know you care. So my kids always knew I cared about them, but I was tough on them. Yeah. And I wanted them to be more than I was. I wanted them to be more than even what I wanted them to be. And, they did that. They were good kids. They weren't hard to raise. And now I see them with their kids. And I just know, this cycle has broken in our family. And I see what they're doing for their kids. And I see what they're doing in their lives and their careers. And it's just,
you talk
amazing.
About being hard on your kids. I think there's an interesting thing that even as parents, and I know that we're a trades podcast, but the truth of it is that people matter. Mm-hmm. And the way that we invest in our kids sometimes affects the way that we invest in people. And I think there's this common misconception as parents that it's like, and this might be a little edgy, but I've heard people say, well, I don't want to hurt my kids. Well, you're going to hurt your kids. I think that we need to get away from, you talk about being hard on them. And if we don't acknowledge the fact that we will make mistakes and that we will hurt them or even hurt people, sometimes hurt is not a bad thing because it's a part of hardship. And hardship is most definitely not a bad thing. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to harm people. Right. And I think that there's a real difference between hurt and harm. And in whether you're a CEO and you're managing teams, it's like, and Aimée, I know that you're a real person, which is why I'm sitting here with you. Like, I know that you're real and authentic. And so I believe, for me, I have done things at work as I have grown in our organization and just in life that have hurt people. Mm-hmm. That is the truth of it. And I'm not proud of those things, and I don't want to do those things, but I have really, really tried to avoid harming people. Because when you harm someone, that's different than hurt. And when you talk about your kids, and I don't mean it like I just think the definitions that we look at things, sometimes it's like, I have teenagers, and they would say, well, Dad, that hurts when I tell them the truth of a mistake that they've made. I have an employee say, wow, that really hurts. Well, guess what? Sometimes when we're told things that we don't want to hear, I don't know anybody out there that enjoys sitting there and hearing about what they maybe have done wrong or needed to improve on. And I am guilty of it as well. Like I've had to sit and listen to, whether it's my children, my wife, or even employees and teammates. Some of the best growth that I've ever experienced is because an employee cared about me enough to hurt me and say, hey boss, you did this and it really wounded me. It really hurt me because like it sucks to sit there and hear about you, how you hurt people. And the bigger that you get and I'm not making an excuse for hurting people, but the fact is we're human beings. We're not perfect. And we're going to do things that are going to hurt people. The key is to avoid harming people. And I think when we harm people, that's when there's a maliciousness. That's when there's a desire. You know, it's like mistakes are made and those things happen. But if we can push beyond not wanting to hurt someone, like I hate when people say, well, I want to be nice. Don't be nice. Be kind.
Yeah.
There's a major difference there. So,
Yeah, I think that I've told people a lot, and even my son who's running a company, you know, people, you can't control how people take something that you say. You can only control how you deliver the message and why you're delivering the message.
yeah,
It's why Radical Candor is my favorite book. I talk about it all the time. But, you know, if you're delivering a message to someone because you truly care and you want them to be the best they can be,
yeah,
that's all you can control. You
Yeah.
can't control their reaction, how they feel, how much they whine about it, you know, because I am never willing to help someone more than they're willing to help themselves.
yeah,
If you're not willing to work hard for where you want to go and what you want to do, I'm not going to help because I'm not going to waste my bandwidth on that. But if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to dig in and you really want to grow and get somewhere, I will come alongside you. I will help you all day long. So, and I think doing that, the only reason that I am sitting here with you today and sitting as the CEO of Brubaker is because I had bosses that cared enough about me to give me bad news,
Yeah.
that cared enough about me to tell me the things that I needed to change, that I needed to work on. I didn't always agree with them,
yeah,
but I always had to remember that they are where they are for a reason, and
Yeah.
they are respected by me and other people for a reason. So whether I agree or disagree, you know, I've got to trust that they know what they're talking about, you know, and I need to listen more than I speak, which I struggle with sometimes.
Me too.
I really
Me too.
struggle with that. But that is really one of the things that they taught me. Like, you have to listen to people.
Do you think that way back when your boss brought you into the office and shared those letters with you, I'd be curious. Did that hurt?
Oh my gosh, I bawled for days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was crushing because I
Would-
thought they were my friends.
Right.
You know, but I look back now and I'm like, I can't believe that my body wasn't buried in a field somewhere where like nobody could find me. I was awful.
But if your boss didn't care enough about you to have that conversation, I don't know if you would be sitting here today.
I would have lost that job. He would have fired me. I wouldn't have had the guts to even try and be a manager again, ever.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone and gotten a job that was safe and easy, and I didn't ever have to feel that pain again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd be here. So, and he knows that. I mean, him and
Yeah.
I have had that conversation as I've grown in my career about how impactful that was for me, that he was willing to take a chance on me and help me through that. And that's what a leader does. You know, I think sometimes we have to manage people, but I think there are leaders that they don't understand why their team doesn't come to them, or they don't understand why their team doesn't talk to them, or why their team doesn't trust them. And I had this conversation recently. You have to be careful about how much you're managing people and how much you're leading people, because
Ooh.
people want to be led.
Say that again. You have to be careful.
You have to be careful how much you're managing people versus leading them, because
That's good.
no good, smart person wants to be managed.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm putting a commercial foreman in place, he wants to be trusted to be a commercial foreman.
Yeah.
But if somebody's managing him, telling him everything to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it,
Yeah.
now he's being managed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that people have to be managed in certain times and in certain instances, but for the most part, they want to be led. A good, smart person wants to be led, and that's why they say people leave managers.
Yeah.
Because if you're a manager, in most cases, you're going to have people that don't, you know, they're not willing, they don't step up, they don't do what you want them to do, and then we complain about them because they're not stepping up, but we're really not leading them and giving them the opportunity to fail forward, do things themselves, learn from their mistakes.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a struggle, and I see that all the time. You know, you
Yeah.
don't build trust when you're managing.
Yeah.
You just don't. You build trust when you're leading people.
Well, and I think leading people is hard because the only way that you're a leader is if people decide to follow you. You can't force them to follow you. And so let's kind of circle back to what you were talking about with your team. And remember, you were saying, well, what are you focusing on? You know, people come to you. And the more that our business has grown and the more that my role has changed over the years, I find that more and more my job is people coming to me with problems. And so with that and with managing
Or opportunities.
well, and that's what I want to talk about, because how do you as a leader, when you are dealing with people coming to you, and this is you can always pass on a question, but you know, you'd be the first.
Absolutely. I always like a challenge.
There you go. But like, when you have people coming to you, how do you as a leader, when you can see things maybe that they don't see, how do you work on? And I'm going to be I'm going to be honest here. For me, sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, come on, really? We're talking about this again? Like, this is, but how do you as a leader help have that grace or that understanding to be able to help them to see it and not become frustrated in that situation? Is that a fair question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah. I think that I just had this conversation actually yesterday with somebody, is that they're like, Aimée, we're right here. And I know you want us to be here and you have no patience. You just want us to be there like right now. And I said, yes, that's absolutely true. But over the years, I've had to learn that, you know, it takes time. It takes time to reach goals. And even when I'm looking at a team member that needs to improve or they have an area where they're struggling, it's as long as we see progress.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be, I can't have someone in my office who hasn't been led for years or ever.
Yeah.
And then expect them to take my feedback, be able to implement it, and be where I would want them to be for themselves immediately.
Yeah.
But I always tell them, as long as we see progress, that's what's important. You know, you still have to move at your own pace, and sometimes we have to push them to move a little faster. But progress is important, and I think sometimes we miss that because we want instant gratification on everything. You know, it's like, you know, I want freeze and frizz, honey, run to freeze and frizz. I want freeze and frizz right now. You know. And then we have the whole, aren't you dieting? Yes, but I still want freeze and frizz. Don't argue with me. Just go get it.
You and my wife have a very similar view. Just last night, we were watching something. She's like, I want that. And I literally was like, aren't you not wanting to eat that? She goes, yes, I don't want to eat that, but I want you to go get it right now.
And don't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's, you know, we want things to happen, you know, but the world doesn't work that way. It takes time to get somebody learning bad habits. And it's going to take time for them to learn better habits. And it takes patience. But if somebody isn't progressing, that's where a tougher conversation has to happen. And, you know, we hire fast and fire slow, and it should be the opposite. You know, we should be hiring slow and firing fast. And I think
there's a line, hiring slow and firing fast. Yeah.
And it's usually the opposite, which is detrimental to the team. It's, you know, we wait too long because we keep wanting to see that. We see that potential.
Yeah.
But at some point, the team has to come before, you know, how much bandwidth we give to one person that really isn't progressing.
Yeah.
And then it's time to make a tough decision.
In our organization, we call that culture. And we have to protect culture at all costs.
Absolutely.
And we owe that to one another, that we're shoulder to shoulder with in what we're doing. I often feel like jobs are battles sometimes. And, you know, the man or woman that's standing next to you really matters as to what the outcome is going to be. And for me as a leader, I have to be really intentional about hiring and firing. And it's helped me, you know, we've established some points in our culture that are practical, that I can identify, oh, this person actually fits our culture. And it's worked really well too, because it promotes who we are, and we're different than other companies. So it attracts a certain type of person to our company, and it also repels another type of person.
Yeah.
But I recently had a situation where I had an employee, and everybody always struggles with being nice,
Hmm.
instead of kind. Because it's not nice to someone to not let them go if they're not fitting. It
Right.
really is not nice at all. And you want to be kind to people, which means you need to tell them the truth in a kind way, and set them free to be able to do something that might fit them better. But I sat there and with management, and we're talking, and I'm like, well, we have 12 points of culture. We call them our around here statements.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, so I just read through them, and I'm like, well, do they meet this statement? No. Do they meet this statement? No. Do they meet this? Like, and these aren't like anything other than, it's like, is this something that they do in their day-to-day work? And we got through all of them, and I think there was only one. And I just looked at them, and I was like, well, that means that they don't fit the culture.
Yeah.
And we can't, when you talk about we need to be slow to hire, I don't think that we evaluate and figure out what that cost is when because you have to invest in people when you bring them on board. You have to teach them the Brubaker way, and teach them what your culture is. And if you bring someone in and they get in like that, well, the other thing that starts to happen is they can start to, what's the word, dismantle your culture.
Well, and you lose trust with your team.
Yeah.
If you hire someone that isn't a good fit, it's like you're basically making them responsible for someone you just hired who doesn't fit in, who
Yeah.
doesn't belong there. And now it's their problem. And now
Yeah.
you've hired them. So as leaders, we're like, well, you have to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
But if we would have taken more time,
Yeah.
and if we would have hired slow, and then we don't fire them fast when we know they're not fitting in because
And why
we
don't
just
we do
hired
that?
them.
We don't do that because for me, when I've not done that, it's like, well, it might work out, and I don't want to have that hard conversation.
Right.
I don't want to, and if I'm being really honest, sometimes it's like, well, I want it to work, and sometimes my pride gets in the way.
Right.
And it's like, I want it to work, and I want this person to succeed, and it becomes more about me than it becomes about them.
Oh yeah. Because we make bad hires. Like it happens.
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
not, but the team's looking at us to make 100% good hires.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to happen because we're human.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what I make sure that my team understands. Like I am learning a new industry. I knew, we didn't necessarily finish my origin story, but how I got experience in the trades was I worked in marketing agencies. So I ran digital agencies that served trades.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny. I'm learning a little bit about that now.
So for years, Brubaker was a customer of mine. So I was
Yeah.
helping them. I was meeting with the owners, helping with their marketing strategies. So, and I was helping a lot of other HVAC contractors with their marketing. So, I have to kind of dismantle how the business works in order to understand how to market it. So I spent years doing that. I worked for Rick Grofu in Nessville Plumbing and Heating for years. And Rick taught me a ton. I did that as a personal consultant to him.
Right. So just to jump ahead in your story there, because so you did that, and Brubaker came to you and made you an offer based on some of that relational experience.
No,
No?
they actually a year before they started looking for the CEO, they hired the North Group, and the North Group came in and helped them develop a leadership team. They didn't even have a leadership team. So it was really the CFO
Wow.
and the two owners that made most of the decisions. So they put the leadership team in place. The North Group started meeting with them, giving them some leadership training and coaching, and then determined, it was time for them to do the search for the CEO.
Okay.
So the Brubakers brought my name forward, but I still had to go through the process of interviewing with the North Group, and they were doing their due diligence to interview other candidates and whatnot. So that process started probably over the summer, and then in October of 22, they offered me the position.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So you accepted the role. We're now you're CEO of Brubaker. I just want to talk about some of what you did in the past year, because you did a lot. You did a lot, and I want to talk about that because you also have some experience now that even some of our listeners might be curious about, because in the trades industry, we have a lot of companies and businesses that are going from, hey, here's founders who started it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's we'll call them the sunset years of their life, and they're looking to transition and move on. You've brought Brubaker through some of those things. So can we talk about for a few minutes just some of the challenges of going from a founder and an owner company to Brubaker is now an ESOP, correct?
Correct.
Employee owned. That's pretty awesome. And you were spearheading that and doing that over this past year.
Yes. I mean, not alone by any
Right.
means. Yeah, so the Brubakers have actually been trying to do that for about 5 years.
Okay.
And the North Group coming in and getting the leadership team together and some of those other things, were really pivotal in them being able to accomplish that. So, so we worked through a lot of that. It was challenging because the hard part is you have owners who this company is their baby, and I wanted to be so sensitive to that because I knew how hard this was going to be. But then I also had to think about the employees and, so then you become, these are your people, you know what I mean? Don and Jerry were, like my bosses but then we're negotiating the ESOP and now it's kind of like we're on opposite sides of the table.
That had to be interesting.
It was very interesting. It was tough because, I truly care about them. But now my allegiance had to be to what's best for the company.
Right.
And it's not like, there were these horrible things that were happening, but it's still a negotiation.
Absolutely.
There's still a lot, you want them to get, what they deserve for their company, but then you also don't want to pay a lot because, now all the employee owners, we've got to pay that loan back. And
Right.
so, and then learning about ESOP and, the fiscal responsibility and the fiduciary responsibility and the ERISA laws and the Department of Labor laws.
Oh,
and
that sounds so
I mean,
overwhelming.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And we went through a full software conversion at the exact same time.
Again, you with one thing is not enough. You got to do more than one thing. My goodness.
Well, if we were going to set ourselves up for success, we couldn't do it, writing out service tickets and selling appliances on handwritten tickets. And, we needed software that now was going to meet us where we needed to be in 3 years or 5 years. And, we went with Service Titan on the service side, which is a best in class software. It's not cheap, but, the business data that you gather from that is extraordinary.
Wow.
And, we had one system here that ran all 7 business units and also our financial reporting. And, it was old, it was outdated. It did some things really well and other things it didn't do very well. So, I mean, we had to, it was huge. It was it was a very large change. And we're still working through it. But we're getting there.
So, what is something that in your life, in your experience, in all of these things, you've come into a trade organization now and you're managing almost 100 people. And we talked about this. It'll be more than 100 in another year, maybe. I say maybe because it might be more than 100 in another few months. We don't know.
Yeah.
But what has it been like for you? You're now leading tradespeople. And I want to just kind of talk about that because I think a lot of people, we talked about Flagger Force. A lot of people, they know things like that from the frustrations that it causes them.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand what tradespeople do from the standpoint of letting them live the lives that they want to live. And, we live in a world and even in a country right now where we take for granted a lot of what these people do and the knowledge that they have. And there's so much there to unpack, and I don't know that we have time for all of that because you're a CEO and you told me that we're going to be paying a bill for her time. So, and we're
a very large bill.
Yeah,
very large
I'm
bill.
Sure. So, we accept donations at www. Anyway. So all of that to say, now you're in this organization and you're leading tradespeople. What are some of the things that's done or maybe even enlightened you or made you aware of with this world that we live in? And I would say you and I have talked a lot about how people have value. And you've experienced people showing you what it is to have value in who you are. I believe that the trade industry, construction, manufacturing, whatever it is, has been devalued over the past 30 years. And what is it that Aimée has seen as you've come into this and you've met these people and you've learned more about what they do?
Yeah, I think I have a soft spot because, I've met a lot of kids that they don't make it in the traditional school environment, let alone college
Yeah.
and I grew up in a time where you went to college, and if you didn't go to college, you were just an absolute complete failure at life
Mm.
because that's what you had to do after high school. And I see these kids that like to work with their hands and they like to get dirty and they enjoy making something or,
Yeah.
you know, but that's not looked at. We look at a graphic designer as somebody who's creative but the creativity that I see happen here every day in our guys that are design building plumbing systems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, how do you know how to do that? Like,
Yeah.
I just watch them in awe. But I guarantee when they were in their formative years where it was time to go to school or go to a trade school, it's like they were made to feel marginalized because they didn't go to a 4-year college. They wanted to go to a trade school. And let me tell you something. Number one, our guys are making a lot of money. More money than these kids getting out of that get out of college with tons of debt.
Yeah.
And now they're asking their employer to pay them twice what they're worth so they can pay their own bills.
Mm-hmm.
And I see
Come
our
on.
guys working their tails off. They work overtime. We need them. They
Yeah.
can't. Nobody's doing their job virtually.
Yeah.
Nobody's sending their job overseas.
Yeah.
And how many people do you know that can come in and when your house is freezing cold and your kids are freezing and your elderly mother that lives with you is freezing,
There it is.
and he can walk in the house, troubleshoot and fix your HVAC system in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
You're telling me that kid should have gone to college and been an accountant and hated his life?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. And you need him.
Absolutely.
You need him more than most people you need, because I have people in my life that I look at that for professional services. But again, I've had an accountant do my taxes for so many years because I had a home-based business in addition to being, running a company. And this year I didn't. And I went on to TurboTax. It's not that he lost my business because he did anything wrong. He was amazing. Love him.
Right.
But I didn't want to pay $500 to get my taxes done. I paid $118 to get my taxes done.
Right.
You can't do that for your HVAC system.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we need these kids, and we need more kids going into the trades, and we need them to be appreciated. We need them to be treated just like everyone else that, I don't care if you're a lawyer or you're a plumber. You're both there is nothing that says that one degree or education or job is more important than the other.
Yeah.
Because I could go my whole life without ever needing an attorney.
Yeah.
But if I buy a house,
Yeah.
I need tradesmen.
Absolutely.
If I try and build a building for my company, I need a tradesman.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the world is changing a little. I think we're further along today
I would agree.
than we were, but there is a long, long way to go. And I think it starts with these kids and parents. Don't tell your kids because they want to go into the trades that they're not living out the dream you have for them. Because I wasn't living out the dream. I'm sure my parents,
Yeah.
even though they struggled with drug addiction, my parents still had dreams for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't live them out, let me tell you. But today, they tell me every day how proud they are of me.
Yeah.
But if I would have followed their dream or the dream that other people had for me, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah.
If I went to a 4-year college, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. So I don't look back at my life and say, I wish something would have changed.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had a better childhood or the childhood that my friends had. I'm sitting in this seat because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, in my own way, appreciate what I went through in my life.
Absolutely.
Because it's important.
Absolutely. I love that these podcasts are real. We're sitting here in your fab shop, at your 15-acre site here at Brubaker Inc. And a guy just walked in while we're having this podcast. His face was absolutely great. He's like, "What is going on? We don't typically do that in the fab shop."
He's probably out there grumbling. Yeah. Now, what is Aimée doing?
Well, as we come to a close here, I want to ask you one more question. And actually, a question and maybe ask you for a statement. And so, what is, I believe, and we've talked a lot about these things, but I don't think that we talk about it enough as leaders, you know, our mistakes. Because I think that people believe that, well, you don't make mistakes. You know, if you're the boss, you don't make mistakes. If you're the
Well,
foreman,
that's a
you don't.
mistake.
Well, exactly. And so it's like, what is a mistake in your life that you've made that you're willing to share with us, that you've learned something from, that maybe someone that's listening could hear it and maybe learn from it without the pain that you learned it?
I would say back in the late 2000s. So in from 2006 until probably 2011, I was winning a lot of awards. I was doing a lot in the community. And I remember making a comment to Tom Baldridge, who was the president of the chamber at the time. And I wanted to be on the chamber board.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a little bit of entitlement now. It's kind of like, well, I've done all these things and I've won all these awards and people think I'm like amazing. You know, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
And then I found out that somebody else might get the board seat, you know, other than me. And I remember making a comment to him. And I doubt Tom would remember this, but it was kind of like, well, why are they putting her on the board? Like, what has she done? And I think back to me, like what he must have the way he probably walked away and thought of me, which Tom knew me pretty well and he knew
Yeah.
but I was such a jerk. Like
Yeah.
I was a real jerk back then because I let the ego of, oh, see everybody, you told me I wasn't going to be anything and now look what I've done.
Yeah.
And now I deserve everything. You know, now I was like entitled. Like,
Yeah.
of course, why wouldn't you put me on your board? And it's just like, and then then I got on the board and then I took a new job. John Way, we sold Deraco, we sold waste delivery service, and I took a job as the president of a large digital marketing agency, Synapse, which my brother-in-law owns. And I didn't make half the board meetings because I was too busy, you know. So it was a new job, it was demanding, it was busy, and it's like they didn't, you know. Finally, it was kind of like, oh, we don't need you anymore.
Wow.
And I just look back at that time in my life and thank God I grew out of it.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like you have to grow up and figure things out. But it's like I wasn't entitled to anything. And when
Yeah.
they actually gave it to me, I screwed it up and I was terrible at it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't give anything back to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, that taught me a big lesson just about, you know, you've never made it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're not like I wasn't any better than anybody else. And if anything, I was actually worse because I thought I was better
Yeah.
just because of what I've accomplished or what I've done.
Yeah.
So that was a lesson. I'm glad I went through it because it, you know, it humbled me and brought
Yeah.
me down to earth a little bit. But, you know, I still look back at that and think like that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like I acted like a real idiot.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important. You know, when we feel entitled, that probably means that we don't deserve what we think we deserve.
Yeah.
And there's really not. That's one really interesting thing about the trades is there's no faking it. You know, there's no, you know, when people listen to the podcast and they hear us talk, this audience of tradespeople, they can sniff us out pretty quickly if we're faking it.
Yeah.
And so, what would a motivation be that you would encourage anyone in that's starting out in life or even restarting in life? Because I feel like even in your story, you've lived multiple stories, you know? So
Yeah, a
it's
little
like, you know, you were you know, an 18-year-old mom.
Mm-hmm.
You were, you know, a CEO and a manager, general manager, you know, now you're a CEO. And it's like, so what would be a motivation that you would just say to encourage people who might be going through one of those stages in life?
I would say, you know, I think we tend to talk ourselves out of our own good ideas, you know, or our dreams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it honestly, weirdly enough, my brain told me I was just going to be a COO forever because I had some bosses that told me I'm a doer. You're a doer. I'm the visionary, but you're the doer. And I allowed them to, again, put that ceiling in place for me. I'm
Yeah.
just a doer.
Yeah.
And I think when I first turned down even applying for the role of CEO here, because again, like, okay, that's the CEO.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because now that I'm doing it, I'm like, wow, this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Come on.
I needed to go through all of those jobs, and I needed to be the COO, and I needed to be, the integrator for those visionaries. But I'm very much a visionary type person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I came in here with a lot of visions that were scary to people. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's slow down a little bit. But I think we talk ourselves out of where we can go and what we can do and what we're capable of.
Yeah.
And I think it's be open to anything because nothing is off the table.
Yeah.
Like if I said to myself, oh, I want to go back to school and get my master's degree and, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I mean, that's a dumb idea. Like you couldn't do that. But you know what? I could. If I really wanted to do it, I could. And I know I could.
Yeah.
Do I want to? No. That sounds absolutely awful. But I know people that have done it, and I look at them and I'm like, how did they do that?
Right.
But I know people look at me and say, how did she do that?
So how did you do that?
We're all capable of
Yeah.
that. How did they do that moment in our life? But we let other people tell us we're not,
There it
and we
is.
let ourselves say we're not. But anything you put your mind to, what you think about comes about.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself you can't, you won't. If you tell yourself you can, you will. And it's as simple as that. And then surround yourself with people that fill your cup with
Well, this is getting good.
positivity, and they're your champions. If they're not your champion, I don't care if they've been your friend for 25 years. Kick them to the curb. You're
Yeah.
done. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I've dropped more people out of my life because they were not for me. They were not with me. They were not encouraging to me. And I should have fired fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now I hire very slow to be close to me in my life. And I fire fast.
Yeah.
Because if you're not with me and for me, you're against me. And I don't want that in my life.
Well, that I would say, I think makes those that are in your life, if they are listening to this, makes them feel honored that you've hired them to be a part of your life, that they're, encouragers and lifters and all of that. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is.
So your camera is right over here. So if people are watching and you've stayed with us through this conversation, which I think it's been a really good conversation, so I'm not surprised for all of you that have stayed all the way to the end. What do people need to be paying attention for Brubaker? Like Brubaker is going to be doing some pretty big things here. So like if you're talking to Lancaster County and there's some big things going on and beyond, because I know, Aimée, you have some big plans and thoughts and things like that. What would you say to the county that is listening right now?
Well, I would say think about where you spend your money, because private equity and big corporate business is coming into our county, and they're raising prices. They're commissioning people to charge you more. So they're asking their employees to directly compete with what's best for the customer and what's best for their family, which is one of the most unfair positions
Come on.
to put a human being in.
Absolutely.
We will never do that. So,
Good for you.
we're creating win-win-win situations. If our customers win and our employees wins, our company wins, and that's it. If one part of that equation is missing, it doesn't work.
Agreed.
So people before profits, it's something I say all the time.
Yeah.
We will always be that company, and we're going to grow because of that.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a job in the trades, come see us. If you're looking to shadow a company in the trades, come see us. We're willing to help. And if you're looking for a new service provider, definitely come see us.
That's awesome. Well, we've sat here in your fab shop and you've given us this time, which I can't wait for the bill. I'm a little afraid of that.
It could just be a happy hour.
Well, okay. All right. Well, we're going to need to edit that out. All of this to say, Aimée, you've stepped up to the line. You've been stepping up to the line all your life. For those of you who are listening and you're struggling with making that first step, listen, don't let people limit you. Don't let people tell you that you can't. Whether you're a man or a woman, there are no glass ceilings. Don't let people say that you aren't a CEO or you aren't this or you aren't that. Surround yourself with people who are encouraging you, that understand the value of who you are and want to build into you. If you have people in your life that aren't wanting to invest in you and aren't wanting to build into you, then I'm sorry, but you don't need them in your life. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to drive you to be better. And so here on the line, we encourage you to step up to the line. Be that person that invests in people, that lifts people up. Be that person that takes the time to mentor who's coming up behind you, that they might take your job so that you can move on to what you have next. So step up to the line. Have a great day.
Peace out. These almost started to feel like they were part of my head.